and ideas expressed on the following program are strictly those of the host.
Have you ever thought about the science behind astrology? It's more than what the future's all about. It's time for a visit with Andrea Gehrz, astrological detective. This hour includes astrological predictions, personal stories, and some crazy experiments. Get ready for a unique ride. Now, here's Andrea Gehrz.
Good morning and
In
welcome
Defense
to
of
the
Astrology by ALG. Here we go. It is quite rare to hear a person say that they don't believe in anthropology, or sociology, or women's studies, and the list goes on. The humanities are alive and well in modern academia. Astrologers, on the other hand, can be found defending astrology on the regular, at parties, with family members, co-workers, partners, and so on. The list is long and the conversation ongoing. Recently, I was asked to teach a class at the Portland School of Astrology on astrological self-defense. While preparing this task, I came to the realization that radio shows across the country should be afraid to fight with me. It turns out that 20 years of experience in the field has taught me a thing or two about defending the divine, beautiful, philosophical art science craft that is astrology. In the following article, lecture, video, I will address a myriad of arguments against the study. I encourage you, the listener, the watcher, to integrate these thoughts into your daily practice and in talking to the world at large. Let's start with Fiocchis, the 13th sign. What about Fiocchis? Does this change my sign? Fiocchis, often called the 13th sign, seems to pop up every few years. It is almost as if the world is checking in with astrologers. Are they still out there believing in this hocus pocus? In addressing this challenge, we must separate ourselves from the idea that the constellations influence us directly. For example, if a planet is in Aries, this does not mean that the constellation of the Ram is acting upon that planet, which then acts on us down here on Earth. Instead, we must understand an important concept I initially learned from one of my most treasured mentors in astrology, Judith Hill. Several years into my learning, Judith explained that the constellations are actually holding space for 12 30-day windows of time. These 30-day periods each hold a certain quality, mood, vibe, and color spectrum, all created by the angle between Sun and Earth. So, the beginning of the Sun's path through Aries marks a certain Sun-Earth configuration, creating a fiery, uplifting vibe. Aries time is also red, warm, and dry. When the Sun enters Taurus 30 days later, the angle between Sun and Earth brings a more dense feel, earthy, sepia-toned, relaxing, sweet, and so on. This is the true cause behind the 12 signs, though, the Sun-Earth angle relationship. When we add Ophiuchus to the mix, we now can see that Ophiuchus is merely a star pattern hanging out near and within the belt of the established zodiac constellations. In fact, most zodiac constellations don't directly overlay a 30-degree template. Some are very long, spanning 2 signs, while others are smaller. And so, if we disconnect the signs from a constellation as influence kind of thinking, we see astrology as a coherent 12-sign system, a map of 12 angles and their resulting effects. Now, let's move to another hard inquiry. What about the 2 zodiacs, tropical and sidereal? How can they both exist? Doesn't this discount astrology? Well, this question can be addressed in multiple ways. One approach would be the scientific-technical approach, mentioning the difference in degrees between the 2 zodiacs, which we call the Ayanamsha. One could propose that the Ayanamsha applies because of the specific latitude and longitude of India, where it is used regularly. In India, astrologers adhere to a star-based zodiac, as opposed to the Sun-Earth relationship system mentioned earlier. It could be true that in the specific locale of India, this system of measurement holds more true. A second, more philosophical answer is that the same 12 archetypes are used in both systems. The 12 creatures and signs make their way into the psyche of the people, and in this way, astrology still holds true. Both India and the United States are speaking to 12 temperaments and find use in the study. This thought doesn't address the technical inconsistency, but examines the psychological act of using astrology in general. Both systems offer a non-judgmental lens into human difference. Now, a third refutation of this attack speaks to the intermediate and advanced astrologer. No matter whether we are using the tropical or sidereal zodiac, the angular infrastructure of the natal chart remains the same. This is huge! The aspect clusters found in a natal chart will hold true in both systems. The aspect patterns of natal chart and the transits to them build a great portion of an advanced technical look into the chart. These natal aspects and their emergence through transits provide much proof of astrology. And in this way, both zodiac systems cooperate quite nicely. Now, let's move to a topic that has permeated astrology for thousands of years. One used to discredit this study numerous times. Twins. What about twins? They have the same chart and they often have very different lives. Doesn't this prove astrology wrong? Okay, this question can be handled in many ways. First, many sets of twins have different rising signs. This one factor can change the effects of the chart a great deal. In fact, rising sign affects temperament, physical shape, physical density, color palette, and placement of planets throughout the houses. This one simple difference can create a divergence in appearance in twins. These are the style of twins where one is heavier and one is lighter. With this question, there's also room to include the philosophy around which astrology has emerged. In Claudius Ptolemy's Tetrabiblos, he offers 4 influences on any growing creature: genetics, culture, climate, and astrologic influences. From this perspective, the astrological chart is only one of 4 influences affecting development. With twins, we can identify variances here, mainly in terms of culture. Twins will grow up around different friends, in varying classes, subjects, and so on. These cultural influences can affect development. If one twin learns French and the other Spanish, this will affect their worldview. Moreover, who a twin marries can affect the natal chart through composite and synastry indicators, as well as cultural factors brought in by the partner. We must also acknowledge the basic temperament of twins. Some charts are more individualizing than others. For instance, if twins are born with an Aries sun and a Sagittarius moon, they might both be hot-headed and freedom-loving. While attached to their twin, this temperament may buck the system. Not wanting to be like another person, this set of twins could cut their hair differently, wear clothes of different styles, and so on. On the other hand, if we have twins with the same rising sign and they have a Cancer sun and a Taurus moon, these two could grow quite attached to one another, preferring safety to the challenges encountered in the outside world. The astral temperament of the twins must be considered. Now, let's back up to a very rudimentary argument against astrology. Horoscopes in the paper don't even work. Okay, now this argument against astrology is easily handled. Newspaper horoscopes are an overly simplified use of astrology. They are lacking in specificity and have great limitations. The horoscopes cannot legitimately consider houses, natal aspect structure, limitations of sun, sign, astro, and so on. They can be thought of more as fortune cookies than real astrology. Horoscopes do have their place in culture, though, functioning as tiny omens, and in this way are satisfying and true. Their lack of observable evidence is no reason to discredit the study of real astrology. It's apples and oranges, really. The next most basic argument against astro is the statement that the 12 signs found in the newspaper can't possibly apply to all people under them. People say, how can all Sagittarians even be the same? Okay, real astrologers know the easy answer to this question. The sun sign is merely 1/10 of the makeup of a person's temperament and personality. One's true nature is shaped by 10 basic influences: Sun, Moon, Rising, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Herschel, Neptune, and Pluto, and the nodes. Okay, the sun sign cannot possibly describe a whole person. Instead, a person is an aggregate of various chart influences. Not only will other pieces of the chart alter the expression of Sagittarius here, but moreover, the Sagittarius person is only activated at certain times. In astrological theory, the moving influences light up natal potentials as they walk around the ecliptic circle. So, a Sagittarius person is only Sagittarius sometimes. A study of physical astrology can provide evidence of the sun's sign's influence. What we do know here is that people with Sagittarius in their natal formation will exhibit fire in the legs. Often Sagittarian people are pushed forth from the bottom third with muscular thighs, restless leg syndrome, and a propensity for sporty shoes. While the physical expression of each Sagittarius is different, we can find observable evidence in the Sagittarian through a tiny bit of physical analysis. Some people ultimately deny their sun sign altogether. Let's look at this attack on astrology. I'm a Gemini and I don't act like one at all. Okay, often as a working astrologer, this ends up being a funny situation. As we look into the chart, we see the remaining 9 influences sitting in Taurus. In this case, the person is basically a Taurus, and we wouldn't even expect them to act like a Gemini much at all. This is the first order of business in cases like this, to examine the whole chart. Why is the person not expressing Gemini characteristics? What other factors are influencing the equation? Moreover, it will be important to ask the person what they think a Gemini is like. Perhaps they are off track in their general description of the archetype. Now let's move to a more evolved version of this simple question. There are paradoxes in my chart. How can this be? To answer this question, we can simply acknowledge the cyclical dynamic nature of the natal chart. The chart is a moving picture, a dynamic map of personality. Often a person will hold diverging parts of the personality in the same form. Modern American culture explains these dichotomies as well, with labels such as bipolar, multiple personalities, manic depressive, etc. These labels accept the personality as a multifaceted and fluctuating thing. Now, let's move on to a more controversial question. Can astrologers be classified as false prophets? What about free will? Okay, over many years as a working astrologer, I have met several Christian astrologers. Christian astrologers believe that God created the outside forces, and thus astrology is of God. From this perspective, astrology is a study of natural design. The lens of Astro is fated here, but also allows freedom of will. This is the same way a horse is fated to look like an animal with a mane. These are fates of the natural God-given world. As far as false prophecy is concerned, all divination can be put under this category. And yet astrology does not have to be used for divinatory purposes. Supposing astrology is a study of nature, well, let's examine its mechanism. How could astrology possibly even work? Well, there are countless theories about astrology's method. Most ancient theories look to optics. Sunlight hits the eyes, travels down spine, energy channels, cerebral spinal fluid, connective tissues, and then chakras. In fact, many scientists know that the dense human form grows on a helix of light. From this perspective, we are light beings first and physical beings second. Other theories look to resonance patterns, cell salts, vibration, color, things happening at the center of the earth, and much, much more. Now, what if no matter what you say, a person simply tells you that they do not believe in astrology? I don't believe in astrology. I'm Snookums and I just don't believe in astrology. I don't believe in it. With this kind of thing, we can think of a similar situation. Can you imagine someone saying that they don't believe in philosophy or anthropology? Similar to these schools of thought, astrology can be understood as a lens. The world can be looked at through the astrology lens or not. In fact, when looking through this lens, observable evidence of the astral forces shows up everywhere. Because the planets do not arrive at the same positions ever in one lifetime, though, astrology can fall short under science's repeatability procedures. In fact, astrology does much better with qualitative research, case studies, personal accounts. But it should be noted that astrology is testable. The lens just requires unique research methods. For instance, astrologers have tested the study by pairing up 5 charts with 5 people successfully. That was Judith Hill. She also studied Mars and redheads. Then there was the Gauklins, who provided statistically significant findings in their study of professional athletes and Mars placements. There are many methods to testing astrology. Watching transits from a double-blind perspective. Now, let's address a few sticking points of astrology, perhaps leading to its constant critique. The first problem is that astrology offers manifold functions. It can address practical concerns, vocational, prediction, esoteric, divination, constitutional medicine, omenology, and so much more. Now, each astrologer has their own way of using the tool and lens of astrology. How can this be? This is because the chart shows a map of one's personal fluctuating life essence. Essence permeates every single thing that happens in life. It affects the vocational inclinations, the physical form, the future waves of spirit, and more. This is also how horoscope writers choose content. What is going on with the general spirit of the people? The general essence? What is the zeitgeist of the month? If we can understand the complexities of possibilities of such a study, we can understand the myriad of uses for the astral schematic. The second problem is that the teleological worldview is missing from the modern-day paradigm. The worldview surrounding the development of astrology in ancient Greece was that of teleology. Most simply, teleology can be defined as a study of things and creatures becoming themselves. The astrological chart is a map of manifestation. Each natal piece describes a natural potential to be expressed through periods of growth. Through this worldview, astrology provides a dynamic, moving map of a person growing into themselves one transit at a time. Now, because teleology is missing from the modern thinking, though, astrology gets labeled as a woo-woo study ungrounded in its approach. Okay. Now, we're on to another problem, a huge problem. We have a messy schematic diagram, or no schematic at all, with the proposition then that astrology is scientific, real, and testable. Now, many factors contribute to the lack of trust in the astral schematic. Multiple house systems, 2 zodiacs, relocation, unknown birth times. It's important that we settle on a dependable diagram. Many modern traditional astrologers have contributed to a strong foundation by use of whole sign houses. Whatever system is being used, it should lend itself to a dependable, consistent astral schematic. In conclusion, there are many people who feel invested in discounting astrology. As practicing astrologers, we can become versed in the art of defending our study. Not with overly emotional responses, but those grounded in reality and sound thinking. What will you say at the next party? How will you convince family members? Take a moment now and think on your process. How can you contribute to carrying on the art, science, craft of real astrology? May all forces be with you. The Portland School of Astrology is an educational and community-based organization that strives to create a culture of learning that includes liberation and empathy at its center. This means we strive to empower learners to examine astrology through the lenses of race, class, body, age, ability, etc., while discovering one's unique strengths and challenges within the natal chart. Opening in 2013, the Portland School of Astrology has expanded to become a leading community organization and the largest school in the United States. PSA is striving to teach astrology through social justice lens that appreciates and validates all expressions of life, both in the chart and within the individual. PSA currently offers comprehensive and integrated year-long programs, open to the public quarterly term programming, an annual conference with changing topics each year, monthly community events for free or at low cost, and special events, an in-house scholarship used for varieties of projects, a number of community resources, an active student life, a publishing house coming in 2020, and an astrological counseling center and bookstore. Join the community at portlandastrology.org.